Anyone have anything to add with the minutes from August 12th?
It's okay to me.
Al, James, Matt, Mark, Tom, me. Okay. Motion to accept the meeting minutes from 8:12.
Second.
Okay. Next meeting, I guess Columbus Day is the 14th, so our meeting's pushed to the 21st. The next item, correspondence. So,
6 p.m. meeting, right?
yeah, I think we said we're going to do them until they change the clocks back. So
6 p.m.
p.m. So correspondence, got a few pieces of correspondence. Well, the first one was basically about the buoy tender boat. I'll let you get
Yeah, I'll
into
touch base on that for,
We'll get into that. Second one was basically regarding Smith Cove and the Stuart Israel, who's the chairman of the Dock and Waterways Committee for South Ferry Hills, wrote and asked that we would look into putting 5-mile-an-hour buoys, designating an area around the anchorage over there off South Ferry Hills in Smith Cove, because of all the traffic they're getting and the toys off the yachts. And I know exactly what he's talking about because I go to Majors Cove a lot, and Majors Cove has now turned into a place for them to come in and water ski and jet ski and
Yeah, I put one there too.
yeah. So
Getting there on a weekend is like going through all kinds of like the tumultuous wave crashing from every direction. You know, like,
Push our jurisdiction out further. This is another.
So Bert brought that up a couple of months ago, how Sag Harbor had applied to the state and expanded their jurisdiction out beyond the 1,500 feet. And it was granted, and now they've turned that area into an anchorage off of the jetty. East of the jetty in Sag Harbor is now an anchorage, which is pretty well populated during summer now. Used to be before, now it's really populated. And actually, I think it took some pressure off. The yachts used to line up along with Shamek, and now they have moved over there further, which is good for us. But I think it's an opportunity to look into that. I don't know where 1,500 feet off of all of our coastline takes us. I mean, that's the first thing I guess we should measure, is just to see how far out it takes. It might cover all of.
it covers a significant amount, not all, but it would
Look.
probably address most of the area of concern, right? Because if you're pushing it out, if you're pushing the activity out one way or another beyond 1,500 feet, it's likely that they're going to have other things to contend with that, fetch and other vessel traffic and things like that. So it might shift the interest to another area altogether, because being tucked in within that 1,500 feet is what offers the protection that they're looking for.
So what do we have to do? As we went back and forth on it, there was.
Right, so if there's an interest in trying to apply some new regulation to an area, right? That area has to be identified and pretty specifically identified, right? From point A to point B, GPS latitude, longitude, however you want to define it specifically. Then that has to be proposed as a regulation, i.e. if 5 mile, no wake zone, from this point to this point, or in this area, that has to be proposed as new legislation, as an amendment, right, to probably 128, if I was guessing, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And it would have to go through that whole entire process of becoming a local law. Because we could, in theory, we could throw buoys in wherever we want, we could even permit them and throw them in, but they carry no weight. Quite literally, anybody who's astute will say, okay, well, yeah, the buoy's there, but if there's no law to support the sign, in effect, it means nothing. So we want to have a law, and the sign notices people, the sign being the buoy in this circumstance, notices people of the law, and then we enforce the law thereafter, right? That's pretty much how it works. So it's a couple of steps, it's not an impossible challenge, it's just, there needs to be, certainly, some effort put into it, some sort of articulation of need, right? Usually that's some sort of forms of documentation. Then the town board would probably feel more comfortable going to, public hearing and being able to, either speak for or against having that, and move on from there.
All right,
You want to put it up on the screen to see what 1,500 feet does? Pretty interesting.
that would be great.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Pretty easy for Christina to do anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if it covers the area that Skylar's Head is in or not. There it is.
That's 1,500, huh?
Right.
That'd be enough to take care of anybody's problem.
Takes care of
Maybe
everything.
you don't need that far.
Well, I mean, if you.
Well, so that's 1,500 from the shoreline, so imagine a big fat horseshoe,
Right.
right there.
They'll leave the center uncovered.
What does it look like on Crescent Beach? Because don't we have 1,500 feet for no jet skis?
No.
Oh, wow.
Inside water, inside that you can't
Jet skis.
use a jet ski at speed, right?
Right, jet skis on the inside waters are restricted to no more than 20 miles an hour and direct transit only, which just means you have to be going to or from some specific.
So some-
Not towing like a,
Correct.
like a,
They come in there about 90 miles an hour and, yeah, I'm going over there. That's where I'm going. Can you, Christina, run that out from the northernmost? Yeah, from like in there. Huh, so that's gonna do a pretty good job.
Yeah, that would. Now, where did they come up with the 1,500 number?
The 1,500
That's
number,
what-
1,500 is municipal jurisdiction everywhere. Like,
That's
so
just-
that's home.
that's what it is.
That's what it is, 1,500, we can exercise that.
Is that what Greenport has,
Yeah,
where
I
they
think,
put all their buoys
Greenport
out?
might have taken a little liberty with some of what they did, I can't really speak specifically to that.
a lot of buoys there.
They got a lot of it.
And they've moved out, like, it's,
Yeah, so, I can't speak to those jurisdictions, but, one of the things that becomes incredibly apparent when looking at this, if you were to do a 1,500-foot sort of horseshoe, so to speak, is how do you enforce that, right? Like we would need a huge, if you were doing it at the 1,500-foot mark, right? Like you would need an immense amount of tackle and hardware, like a lot of water movement there. So you have to
The point is that you would have the ability.
correct, you have the ability to do things within that domain.
Yeah.
Yes, without doing, not much more than passing a local law, applying it within that range.
I think that's what we're.
Yeah, if you put a buoy at 1,500 feet out on the east side and on the west side and said 5 mile an hour zone,
yeah,
you're basically covering your,
probably 3 or 4 buoys across.
Right, yep, there's a lot of different ways to potentially address it.
So Major's Cove, that's within 1,500 feet, covers the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole of it, you couldn't be more than 1,500 feet from shore and be in Major's Harbor. I mean,
Yeah, no,
it's
Major
possible.
Scope is real.
You're out of the channel at that point.
All right, so something to follow up on. I mean, it's the need, there definitely is a need. I think I agree with Mr. Israel, that's the problem. Let's see, third one is regarding.
Letter, sorry. Still vision.
Yes. Yeah. So he's the chairman of the South Ferry Hills Dock and Waterways Committee, and they sent a letter in pointing out the dangers and the disruption caused by jet skiers and toys and everything else and the yachts that are populating that area during the summer. Third item was regarding dredging. So this is sort of highlighted a problem. There's an old email address out there for the Waterways Committee. well, for the Waterways Management Advisory Council, there's an old Waterways Advisory Committee email that town engineer and I think others have used to try to reach us. So we didn't learn about the dredging until a couple days after the notice was put out there. But so Suffolk County is going to dredge sometime starting in about mid-September.
They are dredging.
They're here.
They're dredging Davidson Creek as we speak.
Oh, good. Set up right.
But we knew that. We knew it last month, right?
Right.
Well, he notified us of the dates and the areas they're going to dredge, where they're going to put the spoils, the nourishment. It's not, it's Dickerson Creek and basically Menantic, not going up as far into Menantic as I think some people wanted, but it's up to about Tar Kettle.
But they're
And-
going to do that patch beyond? I thought that
They're
was,
stopping in Target,
they
Yeah.
were stopping at
Stopping.
Tar Kettle. Oh, I thought that was,
at the ramp, they're stopping at the ramp.
okay, I thought that plan,
Just looking
they were going past it.
Empty outlines before that, but.
So
It's just
I
about,
believe that they're using the ramp at Tar Kettle as the sort of northern boundary.
There was talk of that continued dredging.
Up to the curve there, right? Yeah.
It's not happening.
We asked and they said no.
Go ahead, put a couple bucks on them. Keep going.
You know, we could get it done privately. I mean, that's option B.
Yeah, well, I think that's what option B was. I thought that was in here. It's not though, okay.
But
and then Dickerson Creek, they're doing that as well.
the takeaway is that we now have a permit, right, to cover this area, which is then something that hypothetically could be amended moving forward as part of ongoing maintenance or additional portions of things that need to be addressed.
Fourth item,
Bill, before you move off of dredging, about 6 weeks ago, I sent a question into the board. I don't know if it was addressed. A number of the neighbors in Cockles Harbor have noticed that the water is coming up a lot higher on the docks than they used to. I don't know if Skylar's noticed it at the marina.
I'm not sure if I've noticed it as a difference.
I can't hear you.
I don't know if I've noticed it as like a regular difference or like normally I would look at the moon and see if like,
You know, regularly it's coming up higher.
I haven't noticed, but I can't.
I think I mentioned it to John and he may have. But what my question was, when the dredging was last done at the mouth of Cockles Harbor, did they take more spoils, dig deeper or wider? And is the cause of the more water in there because there's more access to flow? Or it's hard to imagine that global warming is causing like the 2 foot difference or that appears.
I think we know the
Mark,
answer.
yeah, I think we're noticing that, and I'm noticing it in West Neck. I mean, so I
Noticing,
think it's-
yeah, I was just wondering if the mouth was made larger so more water had the opportunity to flow in.
I don't think that's not gonna change the amount of water that comes in. It's gonna change the speed of the current passing through there, so the water can ultimately get in there. You know, I'm seeing higher tides everywhere.
Okay,
So, I mean, everywhere I look. So I think it's pretty universal.
okay.
I noticed the other end of the spectrum, tides aren't as low as they usually are. That's the spectrum I know. I look at the low tides and they're not as low as they used to be.
Interesting, okay. So after dredging, then we had comment came in from Tim Pertel. That was a code comment, wanted to add the shoreline along the base of the Heights Bluffs to the proposed unsuitable area list. He wanted to add that area as an area where docks should not be permitted. And the last item came in from Pam Demarest, looking for information regarding the FEWR application and DEC recommendations and the WMAC recommendations. Apparently this was discussed at length at the last board meetings.
I actually was just watching that board meeting. It was the last meeting in August.
So I just pulled out the minutes from that meeting. So this is back in March. So since this seems to be a topic of a lot of conversation, I just figured I'd read our minutes into this meeting. So bear with me. Member Eklund noted that CCE pilings were installed. He stated that the site should be staked for mean high water. The original dock was 60 feet by 4 feet with locust posts. Therefore, the dock was clearly expanded. Chairman Needham did not support the DEC approval, as the new dock uses only 1 foot chocking, has CCA treated pilings and no see-through decking. Member Loretto asked whether the applicant will receive a fine from the building department. Councilman Ianfolo noted that most likely, but not significant enough, since this unpermitted work is a destruction to the environment. Member Eklund suggested that the pilings should probably come out and the dock should be chocked. The configuration probably isn't the biggest issue, but the environment is. The contractor should be forbidden to do work on Shelter Island for a period of time. Chairman Needham suggested that perhaps just replacing the decking would be sufficient. Member Garrity noted that the treated lumber is a real issue here. Member Field stated that there is short-term detriment to the shoreline, a long-term detriment to the water and the creek. Chairman Needham noted that the newly constructed dock, he was referring to Slaughterback's, is fairly close to Garner's Creek and was approved using treated timber. Member Loretto argued that Slaughterback's dock is not inside the creek. Chairman Needham would like to see a complete new dock application for a new dock instead of an application for replacement and repair. Member Garrity noted that a fixed dock would be better so it doesn't sit on the bottom, but that wouldn't be usable at this location. He suggested replacing pilings, chocking the float, and replacing decking for graded with decking all the way to the ramp. And Member Loretto suggested replacing only pilings below mean high water, which would include 4 pilings of the float. He noted that they should provide chocking of float on pilings. And then it just followed up recommendations: replace decking, replace all pilings below mean high water mark for untreated pilings, with untreated pilings, and float should have chocking. So, it was pretty extensively covered by us, and there are plenty of recommendations, and now it's out of our hands. So, or has been. Let's see what else. That was the last bit of correspondence. Any briefing from the liaisons? Anything you want to share with us?
We were just talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, I bet.
I don't have anything from the town board for you, do you?
The dot code is on the agenda.
The final version is now,
Final version. So I just want to really thank you guys for an outstanding job, really. Not to patronize you, no. There was a difference of opinion on some things, but, the majority decided on it. Really a good piece of work. Thank you.
thanks, the whole committee put in a lot of time and a lot of the extra meetings and
Yeah. You really
great deal of
put the time.
consideration and discussion and debate, and thanks.
That was hard, tedious work. You guys should pat yourselves on the back.
God, Bill was here to push us along.
For better or for worse. Thanks. You want to?
910's off station. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, pretty much the only thing I really have for you guys is, Bill alluded to just, earlier. It's come time for us to replace, the Waterways workboat that we have. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a 40-year-old, 19-foot center console coastal, that has had the deck replaced once, the transom replaced once, the engine replaced once. We have shanghaied it into service. It was free to the town when we got it to begin with. No, it's a 40-year-old boat. I think we got it about 20 years ago. So it was fairly new when we got it. But it's served its purpose. We believe there's still some value left in it that the town could extract by selling it with the low engine hour, or fairly new, low hours engine, and a decent trailer underneath it. The hull is mostly shot. So to that end, we have begun the process of sourcing a new boat, right? After talking with Butch and Kenny Lewis, who's the head of DPW, who really oversees all that stuff. He's not my boss, but he oversees all of that stuff. We've come to the conclusion that it's probably most appropriate, if we're looking at a 40-plus year capital investment, to build something specifically for our application. We've looked into different platforms that area municipalities are using, specifically Southampton trustees, East Hampton, Southold, Huntington all have various different versions of aluminum workboats that they use. So we have tentatively received authorization to work with a reputable builder to design a shelter island specific buoy tender, for lack of a better term. We're calling it that.
So that's what you're doing mainly with it, is
Yeah, it's mostly buoy tending, right? Like even when we're pulling gear out of the water, derelict
doing the
gear,
same thing.
it's the same fit and function. We're looking at, I believe it's a 22 to 23 foot long platform, single outboard, a little more purpose built than just a, Bay Billy center console that we've, again, shanghaied into service. So the process is, we will work with this builder to adapt a platform that the state of Maine developed for their inland waterways to fit our application. It's much simpler than starting from scratch and designing a whole entire boat from nothing. So we're going to adapt, the idea is to adapt that platform to our application. Once we're happy and settled with that, then we would send those plans out in the RFP, RFQ process, right? Request for proposal, request for quotes, I guess, to builders that we know can build it, and then also just put it out in general for any other builders that might be interested. This is similar to how we've done dock building, bulkheading, all those things. This is a process that is not foreign to the town. So we have received, like I said, authorization. The total cost for the design portion of it is $4,400, I believe, payable in 2 payments. We've requested that money to come from the Waterways Fund because this is the Waterways boat. All waterways management that takes place with this particular vessel. And then ultimately, when we go to bid, provided that we award a contract as part of that bid process, we would look to fund the building of that boat from the Waterways Fund again. Waterways Fund, at last count, I believe had 200 and, what did I tell you, Bill? Do you remember?
Like 220, I think.
20, somewhere in there. Somewhere north of $200,000 in it. We estimate that the build could cost anywhere up to $150,000 using government contracting, government sourcing, all of those things that we're lucky enough to have access to. If it comes in way out of range, then we're either gonna have to rethink what we're doing or wait until we can procure tax-based funding to supplement that or other sources, grants, et cetera. But as of right this second, we're fairly confident that we should be able to complete the project using Waterways funds, so it would be no new additional burden to taxpayers. It's using monies that are set aside specifically for this application. And we would have an asset that hopefully my children will be replacing one day when they're in this role. That's my hope.
Comes
So
with
that's
a
kind of.
legacy. Comes with a legacy.
Yeah, I hope so.
Should we start looking for grant? Should there be some sort of grant money that we should be seeking for?
So we work on that all the time, Tom, like literally all the time. I'm working on it. We actually have a grant writer. The town has a grant writer on retainer. She's fantastic. I worked with her obtaining some other.
She's in.
So
helping out.
once there's a capital project on the horizon, regardless of how that's ultimately going to be funded, whether it's, whatever, she immediately starts
Oh, okay.
flicking through the files and saying, would this work, would this work? A lot of times it doesn't, right? Because we're a small application. Other times it does, and every little bit helps. So if there's any outside source funding that we can find, we're gonna hunt that down without a doubt. But the objective is to be able to do this without breaking the adopted budget lines for their respective categories. So more to follow, right? We're gonna send that out. Once we get that back, then we can revisit this when the bid process goes out. We'll go from there. Other than that, I don't really have too much for it, really. I mean, you covered the Smith Cove thing, and we'll visit more on that.
Do you have pictures of similar vessels that you can send to us?
Yeah, sure, I can send it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Satisfy,
Use it for our own moorings?
Well, that's, we're not, obviously, this is not designed to get into like the servicing and handling of private moorings and all of that stuff.
Okay,
Designed specifically for
But
hauling and handling the.
But at the same time, this vessel would now allow you to not have to contract out to remove.
Ideally, right, so right now, we can.
It's well needed.
Right, we can pull, since I've been doing, so this is my 5th summer doing this, and there's only been one mooring that we couldn't pull ourselves, right? A derelict mooring that we couldn't pull, and we had a contract with that. I know Butch has had to use contractors on a handful of occasions in the past. Usually, we're pretty good at being able to get them out, but sometimes some of these guys just put stuff in too good. It's too good, I don't know. So yeah, ideally in this circumstance, this platform would probably even reduce that. But it's we use a contractor so infrequently for that it probably wouldn't be a material difference, but certainly simplifies things.
I don't know how unique this vessel has to be, but would it make any sense to putting an ad in the newspaper if someone wants to donate a boat to the town for a tax deduction, and with the money that's saved, have it retrofitted if you could find the right craft that works for you?
Yeah, I mean, there is an opportunity there, I suppose. I don't know off the top of my head that there is a aluminum workboat platform around that would be viable enough, but it's certainly, what I would encourage you all to do in your roles as Waterways committee members is maybe beat the bushes a little bit if something pops to mind and you say, hey, I know I was talking to trustee so-and-so and East Hampton Village is getting rid of their fill in the blank. The idea is to try to not end up with other people's problem junk, right? Because I'm 100% sure most of you have boats. They're mostly a headache from day one. And we want to try to minimize those headaches as long as we can.
You don't have to be secondhand to be headed.
Right, exactly. Right. I didn't say we were going to avoid them. I said minimize them, right? I was deliberate there. But yeah, we're open to any suggestions. Somebody there's a possibility somebody might want to donate to that specific cause too. So we beat those bushes as well, right? Outside sources.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
So that sort of underscores a project that we have to pick up on, which is like get done before the end of the year to figure out the cash flows coming into the Waterways Fund, all the different sources, our expenses, what line items we're responsible for. There's a lot of different revenue nowadays with the docks, the dock fees, the mooring fees. Maybe even beach parking might fall into our coffers. I don't know, but we need to determine all that and see what monies we have flowing into the Waterways Fund, and then determine what kind of capital projects we need to reserve for and what kind of things we might be able to do. But right now, it's we dug into it a little bit last fall, but it's pretty unclear as to what money is there and where it's coming from and how the cash flows are working. So
Just who paid for the bulkhead at North Silver Beach Road?
I've been wondering about that. I don't know.
And then, not to be downer, the one on South Silver Beach Road is pretty bad too.
Oh, yeah.
That's very bad.
Well, that whole, well, that's a good next point is that whole shoreline over there, which gets us to the Eisenberger jetty application.
Actually, on the South Silver Beach.
On the outside.
Yeah, on the outside, there are a couple of pilings, like under the subsurface, small old pilings
Oh, yeah?
in the water there.
Off the landing?
If memory serves, it's off. It's off the bulkhead. There's no ramp or anything there. But yeah, if memory serves, there are a couple of small ones that I noticed when I was out there last.
What's the other,
I don't know when they would have been in, but I noticed them in the.
That's an underwater hazard at the town landing.
Not too many people get in that
Out
close.
Ancient islands?
Yeah, old pilings.
I'll check it out this week.
Just you're right there in
vehicle to
the
pull them
circle,
out.
right in close, like in a foot, 2 feet deep, just offshore.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it'd be just south of the groin that's there, right, which is on the north boundary of the town landing itself.
But there's no, it's tough to get in there, but there's no ladder or steps at
Right.
South Beach, just at North, there's the steps.
Steps to nowhere.
yeah, which is to be a part of the problem too, right?
Yeah.
So let's see, I don't know whether we want to do Jeffy first or get into Eisenberg. We'll probably do Jeffy, just quicker and knock it off. So this came up last time. The question was, how much work actually has to be done on the Jeffy dock? It was kind of an interesting situation because under the current code, since it is a non-conforming dock, repairs would require that it be made less non-conforming. The percentage didn't really matter, just if you're going to repair it, it needs to be less non-conforming. Under the new proposed code, that was changed because that seems burdensome when you're just trying to do repairs. But the percentage has also changed. So under the current code, you only needed 30% to remain usable. Under the proposed code, you need 50%. But that 50%, we've made it clear that the percentage does not include decking, where under the current code, arguably it does include decking. So bottom line, James inspected it. Members of the building department inspected it. They don't think that there's an issue where it's going to be a high percentage or one that's going to ring the bell. And I would lean toward not requiring them to do to make it less conforming, because it would just make a repair project into a much bigger project. So just wanted to, in other words, approve the application as is. So I don't know what other people thought about that, or who's ever had an opportunity to inspect it. It's a very unusual dock. It is quite long, but it's set at an angle so that it is not obstructing anything.
It's been there since the
It's been
1800s.
there forever. It doesn't block navigation. It hasn't been a problem. It definitely needs to be repaired.
Used to be
and
for the
replaced.
farm produce from Westmoreland.
So I would say, I think we should give him the benefit of what will hopefully be the coming code. So, anybody else?
Well, I think either code, he would be okay,
Well, I'm saying on the current code, you should make it more non-conforming.
Mhm.
But under the new code, he doesn't have.
Right.
So Al, you good with the application? James? Matt? Great. Mark?
Yes.
Good. Skylar? Good. All right, I'm good with it. So we got 7? Oh,
That's been a wonderful committee.
wow.
Unanimous decision?
Wow,
And all here.
so quickly. Oh, wait a minute, it was another meeting, so.
All right. I don't know how to pronounce that. Argue, I don't know, whatever, the next one, the mooring application. So, so he's applying for 3657, is that right? And 3657, at last meeting, we basically gave that to Mian. Well, we moved it, Mian was looking for 3657, we moved it over. That newly assigned location, Bo has now designated that as 3657.
No, we just, 3657 no longer exists. It's his permit number, which I think is 3769, Christina? Right? Yeah, right? So that's where you guys move 3657 to, once it's issued to a new person. Due to arcane procedures, we renamed the location, even though it's the same thing, but whatever. So that is where you guys move 3657 to. And because you moved 3657 because it was unsuitable for some reason, we did not leave that former location as a possible location. We removed it, took it out of consideration.
What is 3657 now? It's 30,
Directly to the left.
3769.
3769.
okay. Well, we were trying to keep, I think if I remember, I think it was actually Tom who,
Yeah, we were trying to condense it off that flat a little bit, yep.
It wasn't too shallow.
It shallows up over there, but also if we can keep the moorings together instead of spreading them all out, it's a real help to the bay. They take up a lot of bottom land, and if you look at areas around them, we've lost a lot of it to moorings.
so with that in mind, I guess between 3172 and 3607, does that look
Well,
like?
3172 is apparently available.
Ah,
Application
Stream.
formally.
Green light on.
It's proximate to this.
How big is the boat?
Not big.
Not big,
22 or something.
21, yeah.
1.7 feet.
Yeah, why not?
3172 looks like a layup.
Is that the one near 3172? That's what we're gonna give them?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that the only thing left available in there? I think so, right?
Anyone
Well, it's the
designated?
only formally approved area that's left available, but it's not a gridded location, so one could propose additional locations there.
So that's available? Makes sense to me, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Al, you good? James?
Yes.
Pat, Mark, Tom, me, Kelly? Well, 7-0 again. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. Sorry, Jack. All right, so. Oh, okay. I jumped over Eisenberger. So Eisenberger is interesting. So went down, I don't know if anyone else has gone down there to look along that shoreline. There are a ton of these jetties along there. The application at page 16 indicates that the littoral drift basically is going in the east-southeasterly direction, which would lead one to believe that the northwest side of each one of those jetties should be piled up with sand. And I think historically that has been the case, but in the last couple of years, that has completely changed. And the sand really traveled north this year and dumped a ton of sand up north and seems to have pulled it away from all these other locations. I went down and took a bunch of photos. It just, there's no rhyme or reason. If you go down and look at the various jetties, some have been built up on one side and then, you know, scoured and on the other side. And so some on the northwest side has been built, they've been built up and scoured on the southeast side, and some are the opposite, and some are scoured on both sides. So it's just,
It's a dynamic system.
it is a very dynamic system, and that's what makes me wonder whether it makes sense to even replace something there, because you don't know what impact it's going to have. It's, I mean, if we didn't have it there, I'd be interested to see what happened. I mean, I'm not sure why they want to replace it. You know, what are they trying to,
Are you ready for public comment on this?
Ray, for you?
If you go down the beach to the west more, and you'll see where, you know, at the, like you say, like Prager, Shear.
All the way up the wall.
Nobody ever replaced, yeah, you come further down and you go towards Brienza, this applicant, where the jetty Juan Cura was. I'm saying,
Jack, let everybody knows who you are.
This thing's lighting up here. I don't know what it is.
It's the mic.
I don't know.
Jack Costello on behalf of the applicant. Okay, maybe that's
Sorry, I should have had you identify yourself.
So this jetty has been doing its job, the jetties in this area. If you look at the neighbors, which was One Cure, now it's Brienza. And you go down even further to where the town itself replaced the jetties. So if you look further down that beach, if Christina puts it
Bring that
back
up
up,
again, Christina, that.
the town itself, over the past 10 years, has replaced all their jetties. If you go further down Silver Beach, the town has replaced these. If you even go further down, Christina, past year, the town has approved those and the town has paid for those to be replaced. And then you can see here with all the town, it's building up on the west side. Every single one, west, 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 west. That's a dynamic that's going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen. You can see here, west, west. That's Oak Tree, that's Juan Cura's old house. It's Brienza and Eisenberger's the next one.
I don't know how old this photo is, but
Well, that's,
When I went-
I mean, that's a perfect picture of historically what that beach has done.
when I went down there and took photos today, those jetties in front of Brienza, I mean, in front of Wancura's old place, there's nothing built up on either side of north or south. They're wiped out. They're like this high. You can't even climb over them. and then all the way up at Wallasoff, on his southwest, on his southeast side, it's completely washed out. And so is the town landing at, we call it Twirlies, but it's, I guess that would be North Brander. Yeah, North Brander. That's completely washed out on both sides, north and south. So I just don't. Steve, do you have those photos?
A lot of them are where the jetty is washed out, or where the jetty's shut.
No, but they're not. I mean, if you look at, so Wallasoff, well, so that's Eisenberg. So the first, just hit the first one, Eisenberger. And so on both sides of that, there's no accumulation. That's the looking northwest. And the next one is.
And just to make a point of reference, this jetty is going to be dropped down to 18 inches. It's going to become a low-profile jetty and cut back at low tide by DEC regulations. We have to cut the jetty back 5 feet to mean low
Making
water.
shorter
We're not
and-
allowed to extend past mean low water, and we're not allowed to be over 18 inches. So what you see there, the jetty is going to drop. And the reason we're replacing it is because it needs to be replaced. You know, that's the fact.
I mean, the fact that there's sand there at all or anything there below, above the high tide line.
And you can, and like I said, if you look further to the east, all the town jetties are all working. It's all building up on the west side.
I didn't go all the way down there. I was just looking from Wankura up to Wallasoff. And they're all torn away on both sides. I mean, and they're not in great shape, but there's no holes in them. And
Yeah, but there's sand there.
Yeah, but they're not building up on.
I know, but the places where they're down the way, there's no sand at all, period, and they're not even low tide,
Which way?
going to the west.
The idea of these things is to hold the beach and then let them fill and let the sand come over the top of it.
This is what's really strange. This is at the North Brander town landing. So normally this time of year, those rocks would be completely covered with sand. It washes it, the wintertime, it disappears. And then by April, it's filled up to that dark mark, up to here, is all sand. And it covers these rocks up completely. And all that sand from that area has washed north, and it's all dumped on the beach up north, which is great. But it's no longer, it's not great because it was pushed up so high, it's above the high water mark. And the wind blew it all up into the brush. And the whole point is that I certainly don't know enough to make a decision as to whether these things make sense or not. This is the north or the southeast side of that same location, washed out the same way. So both the north and south are washed out. And that would be filled right up, there'd be sand above that concrete. So that whole thing is swashed out.
That's the one where the adjacent jetty has failed.
Well, this particular application, not to talk about any other area, is that we have a dynamic that's working. So, I mean, that's the proof of everything. I mean, down there, we have a beach that's stabilized. The jetties are there. You have, Boncuras, Granza, and now you have this applicant, and you're disrupting the flow of the sand. We're going to drop it down so the sand can fill and the sand can go over the top. And like I said, with that picture Christina just put up, you saw how they were all filling up. And with the town.
Down is further east.
Further to the east, it becomes more, the littoral drift becomes stronger as it goes to the east, towards the mouth of West Neck. So all I'm saying is we have proof here that this dynamic is working, and we're just asking to replace the jetty, drop it down by the DEC.
Yeah, I don't think it is proof that it's working from what I saw, but all these structures just seem to be disrupting what's going on along the coastline over there. It's the bulkhead at both the bulkheads over there at the town landings have been, all three town landings are suffering over there from everything moving around, and there's no sand left. The one just washed out, we just repaired it. The other one's ready to go. The steps don't reach the sand any longer. It's all torn out. But I don't know. I just don't, the point being, I don't think we're in a position to know what to do with these things.
Like this, the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of State, and the DEC felt it was a
Yeah.
good idea. And I think it's a good idea too.
Are you gonna, the survey shows, the existing survey shows the thing crossing over into you're gonna straighten it out and go parallel?
Jack, could you talk about, you just mentioned drop it down. I just don't understand your meaning there.
The height of the jetty is going to drop down to 18 inches above the current grade. So right now, say it's 3 feet, we're going to cut it down in half and drop it down lower. And we're also going to cut it back 5 feet to the low water.
So where mean low water is like that grade, okay.
Right, so right now it extends 5 feet past mean low water by DEC regulations. I'm not allowed to do that. We cut it back to 5 feet, we drop it down to 18 inches. And hopefully that way it'll fill and then it'll allow the sand to go over the top and continue the littoral drift.
You'll be able to walk down the beach.
Right.
Where you can't now, there a number of them are just way too high.
Yeah, I was wondering, and now,
And failing on the bottom.
I had a question. It's, I don't have a problem with this here. It's just more for future. Why is it that, rock and boulders are being used instead of like, traditional actual lumber or,
This is a way that's easier to regulate the height. Like they can give me a height. If we're using rocks and stuff, certainly the sand will go through it, but this is a more clean cut way to do it. And it's also more affordable for the customers and stuff like that. And it's a more effective way to,
it is more effective.
more effective, and it's a more effective way to get the elevation where they want.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I've seen this done in large scale, obviously, with rock. But,
Too large scale, lots of rock, that's no problem.
okay.
it's a problem, I wish this had come up earlier, because there's no requirement in the code that people be able to walk down that beach. There's no steps required as they are with docks. So you can't get along that beach. That wood, where there's about 4 or 5 of those jetties, which if they ever get replaced, they'll be lower, like you're saying, this will be a lower profile. But I don't know when that ever happens. And in the meantime, you can't get down the beach for long stretches. Could have. It only applies to docks at this point. Anyway, so.
Won't be necessary in the future because you can't go that high anymore.
That's true, you said this was.
That's what I'm saying, if they were being,
These regulations have been, it's been going on for a few years now, but it'll be 18 inches above beach grade. So
you have to wait till the people.
People
Place.
Right.
Be-
You can't mandate that they put steps in on the way. I mean, it'd be nice, I'd like that.
Yeah. All right, well, so on this Eisenberger application, Al,
I'm good.
James, Matt, Mark, you're good? Tom, good. I'm actually going to abstain just because I don't feel comfortable. I don't know enough to make this vote on it, so.
Good.
And you're good?
Yep.
So 6-1 abstain. That's 6-1.
had to ruin the night, Bill.
Perfect game.
All right, guys, have a good night.
All right, who had Bill?
That's a discussion. I mean,
On the lateral drift, now this is past us, the drift of the sand in that area. Is it possible that perhaps dredging projects along that beach, the sands or spoil should be deposited elsewhere instead of keep pushing them northward? That's just
The
a,
town already drops dredge spoil. There's certain projects on the island of dredging where the town is given the spoil, and down by where the town, further down Silver Beach, they use that for nourishment. And when I'd say 5-10 years ago, when they did the giant dredge project over by South Ferry,
Yeah,
Where they had that big hump over by the North Haven terminal, they pumped that to your guys, basically jetty areas as nourishment. So that's where all that sand came from, and the town also nourishes from dredge projects by their jetties.
I was more actually thinking about there's a cove or inlet. Royer, that's the one. I was wondering if maybe,
They take it up the other direction.
and they put it the other way, that spoils is in theory coming from all the way down the beach. Wonder if maybe we can't, is that something to investigate, maybe redirecting that spoil?
I'm sure Royer would love to have you pull all that
Back-
sand.
Back the other way? I'm just, I don't know, just thinking out loud.
I'm not involved with that project, I'm familiar with the Royer Basin, but they take that back up towards like the northwest.
Yeah, they put it,
And they basically protect their properties, and the ones paying for it, that's a privately funded dredge project. And it nourishes their beach. So basically.
They spread that sand all the way.
Yeah, so basically take it out of their inlet, nourish their beach, and then keep the process going. It's just the way that works. And that's not funded by the government. It's private. Not that it makes a difference, still government regulated.
I think long-term, sorry. I think long-term, I'd be interested in looking at that, because I think your point about sort of significantly engineered along the coast, something's happening, if something's happening, that coast is moving continuously. If we, sort of could get up to speed on what's the sort of state of the art of knowledge about coastal movement, I think maybe we need to put in James's cut through Shell Beach.
Although, the way this is describing it, that wouldn't go the other way.
Right. I think it might be helpful if we actually could find out what is known about it, so we're not sitting here speculating, maybe we can't know, maybe there's not enough information, but it might be helpful to sort of. check into that.
As coastal engineers,
If they had jetties, they wouldn't.
And they're,
they've offered.
I'm not allowed to put any jetties there. What I'm saying is, if they're continuously nourishing their beach.
Yeah.
In lieu of having the jetties, they're not allowed to be, new ones go in.
there aren't any jetties up there.
There's no jetties there. So that, the total drift moves quicker and goes right into the basin. So there's nothing to slow it down.
But theoretically, it might move back. It's like, sort of seasonally, whatever. It's like the jetties, at certain points, like stop it, change the flow. I don't know.
Time-lapse
I don't have,
photos of the area would be, time-lapse photos would show what's going on over the course of the last 15 years, something like that.
There's plenty of aerial photos around.
Yeah.
And it's goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's a very dynamic system.
Yeah, one wintertime it's here, the summertime it's not.
It just last winter was so radically different than previous years. It's stunning changes along that shoreline in 1 year. All right, thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
thanks, Jack.
Jack, before you leave.
Really? No, I'm serious.
He's serious. He's serious, Jack.
Yeah, but
Finally, guys come up with an amusing joke and
I was wondering if you could give us some information on this. One of the people on North Ram Island who bought the Dominic Barber house, which is just east of the wetlands. The house was derelict. I think the town condemned it at one point. And they bought it. They bought the house. The bulkhead is totally diminished, destroyed. And the land 10 feet past the bulkhead is all eaten away. And it's really a dangerous situation, especially coming into the winter when storms could come. I spoke to the couple that owns it, and they said that they have a permit in, but it's been stalled. It's not moving quickly. And if they have to go through the winter, and if we get a big storm or two, instead of just losing 10 feet of land beyond the destroyed bulkhead, they could lose another 20 or 30 feet. I was wondering if you know what's holding it up and if anything could be done.
Well, yes, that's Patrick Loftus-Hill's.
Maybe Christina could put it up?
This is something right in the headlights right now. I actually talked to the owner today.
Okay.
I met with the head.
Jack and I have not had a conversation about this.
This is a project that has been going on for about 3 years, and I think a lot of the problem was whether it was a wetlands application or an application for you guys to see. It's an application where there's bulkheads, rocks, like, you know, I actually have it right here. I have the plans in my hand. And I was actually here at Town Hall discussing this, trying to get answers about who was gonna handle this application. I believe that, Mark was I had you on site to take a look at what we were proposing. This was probably 3 years ago. I had James there, I had Al there, I had Mike Anglin there, I had John Needham there, and I felt that everything was moving. I never hooked up with Bill on the project. Bill, of course, was on this committee. It seemed like a pretty, easy application.
Right.
It was a bulkhead that we were basically going to lower the height a little bit, but so let's just say maintain the height as it was, drop down the height of the bulkhead to where it was 3 feet. And this is what seems to have confused everybody. There was just gonna be a lower protected area where it was gonna make it like a lower platform on a dock. It was gonna make it easier for the applicants to access the water, and then that area would have retaining walls behind it. So upon the town looking at this, it was decided that maybe it should be a wetlands application. This is a situation that's been going on for 3 years now, which it seems like everybody's tossing the ball around. I don't want to make any problems with the town on this application or make things difficult, but it's something that I've been seeking. I was here in Town Hall today. I was in the building department today and trying to resolve this. I feel that part of this application isn't within your jurisdiction, but considering some of it was considered a wetlands application, it got punted to the town board.
Which property is it?
It's the old monkey house, Mower House.
Oh.
Gross.
I think I saw that work session,
So it's,
we're discussing this.
and so like I said, today I was there on site meeting with the head of the CAC. Because once the wetlands application gets submitted, the CAC gets to review it, the Conservation Advisory Committee. And that's where it goes rather than you guys. Considering a major part of it was considered a wetlands application. And Christina, you can tell me that I'm wrong at any moment. But I tried to have a meeting with Christina today, but she was in a different room, which is. But basically, that's where this thing's been held up. I mean, it's just held up.
Can anything be done before the winter storms come in?
Give me a permit.
You got it.
This is a situation where we're getting into the season where it's gonna be hard to work there, but they have lost a significant portion of the
There's a
bulkhead.
big hole there.
There's a big, and this, like I said, if there was no hole to begin with, they wouldn't have replaced it, but the bulkhead has seen its time. The property lay dormant and delinquent for 20 years.
But Ben, around, do you know anything about this? Or
No,
has this come up to your level yet?
no.
See, that's where we've got to get past wherever this has to go. And that's been very frustrating for the owner, for myself, because there's no like wetlands committee. There's the CAC that gives their thoughts. It's a 6-member
Town board is.
It goes to the town board.
Up until about a minute ago, it went to planning board.
Right.
And that's been the struggle, like who's taking care of what around here? And you're right, you're absolutely right. And this particular applicant is up in this
So
circle.
there is a wetlands application that's been submitted?
Yes,
So who's looking at
It's
it?
a time of essence situation. at
town
this-
board will.
Haven't seen
Will.
it yet. This I haven't seen it yet.
It was sent to you.
Right, see, and I would, and who makes the determination is the town board and the town attorney. I would argue this is an application for you guys. I think it's a dock application. I don't think it's a wetlands application. It's just basically the town looks at retaining walls as fences. And that's.
You could split it into two things. I mean, you could do the bulkhead, right?
Or,
I'm not saying that you want to do that, but you could get,
or punt it right to the town board, have somebody like deal with it. Which not circumventing you guys, not going around your guys' back. It's a bulkhead replacement. It's just one area is changing elevation.
based on what we had said earlier, I mean, it seems like we would approve it.
Right, and like I said, like I said, Mike Anglin was there, Al was there, James was there. I never hooked up with Bill. Mark was there. I had a lot of when this first, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when this first came up. And then for some reason, it went around you guys because of the area was still, it's not, you say a wetlands application, but there's no real wetlands involved.
There is no wetlands.
There's no wetlands involved.
Above.
Yeah, it's all behind the original bulkhead.
But does it extend inland into the protected zone?
It's in the regulated area.
It's in the regulated area. But then you go, a retaining wall behind the bulkhead, where you're trying, is considered or looked at as a fence by the town of Shelter Island. So basically, we're lowering one area to create a more accessible, waterfront experience for this applicant. And then we need to achieve the elevation, so there's a retaining wall behind that. And that's what's led to all this confusion.
Similar was done just down the beach. I believe they have the bulkhead and then there's another retaining wall behind the bulkhead creating a flat here.
Yeah, the whole, right from,
It's like a knee
So
wall.
like a knee wall.
Couple places.
So if you were,
There were several houses that have that.
Conrad Baines has the bar,
yeah,
to Tate, all the way through Kraus, and you can go all the way down to the end of Sims. They all have a retaining wall behind it, and there was never a wetlands application for any of those bulkheads.
yeah, it seems like
You know what I'm
it
saying?
should be held up.
From Conrad Baines' house, basically all the way to Sims,
Yeah,
there is a retaining wall.
This is Loftus.
and we call it a knee wall.
Yeah, a knee wall, a retaining wall, but that's
Almost all those
like,
properties that have, yeah.
Christina, could you put up a close-up of that property by any chance? Because it's really a hazard at this.
It's the great.
Isn't it that one?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah, that's
property right there, yeah.
Loftus Hill.
Patrick Loftus Hills.
I mean, the question was, do we want to set a town hearing on it, and a public hearing? I don't think that was answered. We set a public hearing?
We haven't said anything about
Yeah.
it here.
No. So, yeah.
Could you see how much is eaten away behind the bulkhead?
Not really.
That picture doesn't show it well.
So if the bulkhead was replaced at its original current height as opposed to lowering it, then you wouldn't have an issue? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have it, I mean, it's the combination of that lower plus the retaining wall.
It's the retaining wall, yeah. So it's the activity behind the bulkhead that they're concerned with, but that has never been a concern before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
As far as these retaining walls, it's never been we've never got a wetlands permit for not one of those retaining walls behind the bulkheads. For that whole, for anywhere, It's a very far stretch.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm still here doing this stuff. But, so, yeah, it's good that you guys actually brought this up, because this is right, and like I said, I was here today, building department, here, talking to Amber Wilson, just trying to kind of like figure out who's gonna, like I said, the applicant is rightfully at his wit's end.
I thought if a property was bulkheaded, that the landward of that wasn't wetland, wasn't considered wetlands. I mean, isn't that then?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's not a wetland, but it's just the
It's in the
process.
regulated
It's
area.
the regulated area, it's the process, like who has jurisdiction within this town is the problem. I have a DEC permit, I have an Army Corps permit, Department of State permit, everybody's fine with it. I met down there with, I think 5 of the 7 members 3 years ago, everybody was cool with it. And then it was deemed that it was a wetlands application. So that's like really
It's a little weird, yeah.
and this is something that I feel, this is me personally, the town board and the town attorney decided that this was a wetlands application. I feel it's a dock application that should be evaluated by you guys. And, now that the CAC is involved to give their,
Right.
which is fine, which is fine. So, I met one of the members out of the 6 today, the chair. So, hopefully that gets things going in the right direction. And they have to advise the town council. But it's something that we might need a site visit, because it is, when you look at the plans, it's a coordinated team with this particular project.
Right.
I did the plans along with designers.
Mhm.
So it's almost something where it's Howard, right?
Howard. Yeah.
So I met with him down there, and once we kind of like went over it, it became a little bit more clear, just when you're actually physically standing there on site, and that's something that the town council, if you guys are the ones gonna take the lead on this, I would gladly meet with you, the two of you, and, you know, Meg and Amber. And go, this is the deal, this is the, just play it right out. It's a pretty, my activity is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple.
What did Howard sound like when he saw it?
He seemed like, well, there were questions, and then he seemed fine. I mean, you know, he didn't tell me yay or nay or give me any definitive decision, but when we left site, he certainly seemed to understand what we were talking about.
Considering how long this has been kicking around, I'd just like to ask if the town could render some kind of decision for them and get this taken care of and not waiting till next spring in order to be dealt with, because it could be like a real environmental disaster.
And I'm sure we have pictures,
I don't,
and I'm sure we have pictures showing what it looked like 3 years ago, compared to what it looks like now.
yeah,
A tremendous amount of fill, potentially debris, the bulkhead is smashed now. Now it's
Real bad shape.
in real bad shape.
Big hole behind it.
It was in poor shape 3 years ago, now it's in, like, we gotta do something shape.
anywhere else that you saw that you would condemn it? It's just that bad.
Well, basically, if this guy wasn't doing something about his property, you'd be going after him.
Yeah.
And he's being proactive to fix it, and he's getting no help.
Would it be helpful if Jack or somebody came in and then, since all we got this in public comments?
Yeah, I don't, so this started 3 years ago?
I would say 2.5, 3 years ago, yes.
Who made the, Christina, can you shed some light, who made the
Yeah.
determination as a wetlands application?
Building inspector.
Building inspector.
But if it goes into the regulated area, I think
Correct.
that this, you know, that flag gets raised.
Yep.
So, you know, someone needs to that flag should get raised when you go into the regulated area, but then someone should make a decision.
Yeah.
Building inspector exactly stated all the reconfiguring of the regulated area requirements.
So is it the town council and the town attorney that decides whether it's a wetlands application or the building department?
Building
The building
department
department.
makes the call, what kind of application this is.
I mean,
So, yeah, that's, so the determination was made and then it just got, all right, and so I don't really understand.
But it seems like it's complete, the wetlands application.
Yeah, it's
So,
complete, yeah.
I mean, what the holdup may be is, we just took back wetlands authority, and we're in the process of hiring, or maybe have hired, a consultant to help us analyze some of these applications. And we're just starting to hear them now.
Right, and I mean, in this particular situation is dire. This guy predates any of these new,
This should be fast tracked.
yeah, he predates the stuff, it's, you know, like,
Jack, can you come to the work session tomorrow and bring this up in the public comment moment? It's the first thing that we did.
what time?
1 o'clock.
Killing me.
There was somebody.
Yeah,
You got nothing
yeah.
else to do, Jack, come on.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can,
Okay.
because I want to put this to bed after 3 years.
That's the best way to shed some light on it, I think, unless Albert, you have another idea.
Yeah.
Just start, start.
Check those.
I'm afraid to try to walk out this door again.
Yeah, you might want to go out this door.
It's actually very good that we did have this conversation, because this is something that's very important. And it's been something, you know, like I said, I came here today trying to get answers, and I feel that coming to you guys at this point, if you're gonna take over the wetlands, that's gonna be like, we gotta get it going. And I'd be happy to do a site inspection with the whole town council.
Yeah, I think you should come tomorrow and that'll get it on everyone's radar. That's the best thing to do.
That's what we will do.
Town board should meet Jack at the property at 1 o'clock with their boots on.
It's actually a pretty accessible site. It wouldn't be a problem, you know. I'm sure everybody here already has Lyme disease, so it doesn't.
3 times.
All right, thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Zach.
That kind of brings into mind, what happens?
I'd go if I were you.
Run, Jack, run, go, I would distract it.
What happens when we have one more that's failed and we don't see any effort to remedy the situation? What would happen there? What happens if we've got a failed bulkhead somewhere on the island that doesn't seem
You have one on Pacific Avenue.
That's the one I'm talking about.
We mentioned it a long time ago.
Yeah, what happens in that situation? Is that something that the owner can be compelled to? It's obviously gonna cause damage to the neighboring property.
So you've got
It
a,
hasn't already,
you have a provision that deals with, again, deals with docks on that, but not,
but not bulkheads or groins.
I would think that's building inspector, no? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it's the same concept.
Building
And that
inspector
will-
would never make its way down to that waterfront to see the damage there.
no, he goes down and sees it.
Someone would have to call him and get a
Yeah.
complaint.
So, yeah, I mean,
I don't believe if there's not a risk to public safety, right?
Yeah,
I don't think there's any obligation.
Certainly the adjacent neighbors is a risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Perhaps, right, but there, I don't think there's any obligation, because we dealt with this on a property on, I was involved in investigating what was going on a property on, Nostrum Parkway. And there's no obligation, as far as we could find, once a permittee is granted the authority to have a bulkhead, to keep that bulkhead into perpetuity. Like, you can remove the bulkhead if you want, you don't have to have a bulkhead.
Are you talking about the same property?
I'm talking about a property on Nostrum, I don't know what, you know.
that's the one I'm
The
thinking.
property we're talking about.
Except Peconic, I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh, you said Peconic, I meant Nostrand. I'm talking about the same one you're talking about.
And I meant Nostrand too.
So there's no obligation of a person in law, at least in local law, that we could find. I worked on this with Steve.
Okay. Such as there is with the dock code, you
Right.
have to
So
maintain
as
because
long
of
as
the
it's
dock,
not
there's nothing.
physically posing a threat, such that we would have to close it off like they did with the one that failed at North Silver Beach West, right? They had to take some action to prevent people from getting hurt in that circumstance. But there's no reasonable, articulable way to say somebody's gonna walk down that person's property who shouldn't be there to begin
Along the
with.
shoreline?
But you can walk along the shoreline and avoid it altogether, right? So it's one of those things that nobody ever
Nourishing the
thought,
beach.
who wouldn't replace their bulkhead, right? Like a lot of our code is predicated on common sense. Once you spend money on something.
It's the first
you keep it
mistake.
up, like that, but that's not always the case. And so.
Are you not averse to losing your lawn?
Right. I'd be arguing that my property's smaller, lower my tax bill now.
That's what he's going for.
No, I was just curious.
Anyone else have any,
There too.
thoughts they wanna throw out?
I do actually, with regard to just the applications, right, like overall process. Maybe there should be a checklist, or an amended checklist for application process, like for different sections of the town to acknowledge whether or not they have received it or even need to receive it, right? So like if it's a dock permit application that may also require a wetlands permit application, right? Maybe somebody needs to say, okay, has this been to wetlands? Have they deemed it that it's not their jurisdiction? Or vice versa, whoever comes first, I don't know, to me.
Communication going on between
Right, so,
everybody here.
But maybe everybody should lay eyes on it regardless, and say, yeah, definitely seen this isn't for me, goes to the next guy, check the box. So,
Yeah, Amber and Christina had sent an email, talking about setting up a checklist once we know what the new law is, so.
just so that way it doesn't kind of fall through the cracks, man. Who's on first, right? We've dealt with that on lots of different permit types and even moorings, sometimes like who's doing what.
No, it's an issue.
Word flush.
Uh-oh.
Is that it?
I'm sorry, guys, my neighbor just texted me, my dog's loose.
I take that as a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, there you go.
I'm gonna put it on, call into animal control.